Yeah.
So just initially, do you work with people that are brand new to the game, or do they have to come to you at a certain kind of, do they come to you at a certain type of skill level, or how does that work for you?
So it's unusual that somebody will come to me who's brand new to the game. It's not
Yeah.
that I don't work with people who are brand new to the game. It just seems to be that I don't necessarily attract that person. I had a junior come to see me, I want to say about 7 or 8 weeks ago, who had probably been playing about a year. I'd had some group lessons and done a couple of bits, but it was literally got to teach him how to move properly. But the kid's a really good sportsman, and he's like, you've seen immense improvements in 6 sessions. So it's sort of like he would probably be he'd be as close to a beginner as I get.
Mm.
And even the kids when I get like 7, 8, 9, they've already been playing for a little bit. They've got a bit of a swing.
Yeah,
So
they can
it's
hit.
yeah, I don't know why. It just seems to be that they're already more of an established player to some extent, and then they'll come and generally tend to make the way over.
So you talk about body movements there. I think a lot of coaches kind of go straight into certain things, don't they? Are looking at playing and faces and stuff. Do you very much start at how they move first and then build off of that?
Yeah, I like sort of my bias, if you like, would be my go-to would be get the body moving appropriately, so that therefore the arms and then the club can move as a response to what the body's able to do. And then let the ball sort of react to what's going on with it. And then obviously it can be quite individualized to how each person is going to respond. So sometimes it'll be I'll have to go into just how they're delivering the club. It might be what their arms are doing, what their wrists are doing, but my predominant one would be, particularly when you're looking at the junior side, it very much would be get them moving properly, devise the swing, get all of the bits in that need to be decent. Then you've got a foundation to build on. So you start to build good speed on top of decent mechanics. That sort of would be my way of going around it, particularly from a junior development perspective.
Do you talking about speed there, is that a big advocate to what you do as well? Get them hitting it a long way early, get them moving powerfully early as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actively try and just go just off speed. So
Yeah.
with young juniors, I wouldn't do speed sessions, but I'm also not trying to not get them to send it. So I want them to get it as far as they can, but I'm not actively going after speed development stuff. So if you, I think that it's probably slightly a controversial one in the fact that when you look at the particular drive chip put stuff in America and a lot of emphasis on hitting the ball a long way in that sort of stuff. But I kind of look at, because you get more points for hitting it further and all that sort of stuff. But I would be less inclined to go after the speed in the 8 to 12-year-olds. I would get them to move as well as I can. And then if they're going to try and develop the power that they want to get through their golf swing, can we get that still in that adolescent phase through other sports that they're still playing? Get them better athletically, get them quicker, get them jumping higher, getting all the little things that are going to be able to transpose themselves into the golf swing, then get them to be able to learn to use what they've got. Then, if it needs to be, then go after speed. But from whatever limited success I've had over the years, it's just been that if I tend to put the speed in and the movement's not great, then obviously the dispersion pattern can go out the window as well. And it's not like playing a long drive, is it? We don't get 3 goes at it. And I think that the difference between America and over here is on the drive chip put. It's all about absolutely sending it. Whereas over in the UK and into Europe, the golf courses are generally narrower. They play shorter. There is still an emphasis. You've got to still hit it relatively straight, but you've obviously got to be able to send it. So, and then based on if the individual who's in front of you and where they are in their maturational cycle, I think that part of it depends on when you're going to start introducing speed. Is it going to be in that sort of 14 to 16 bracket? They're going to start going to the gym. They made it into a regional squad. What is it that you're going to potentially go after? I think it's also case by case that definitely don't have like a one size fits all. It's more who is the individual who's in front of me and what's going to be best suited to who they are.
It can be dangerous, can't it, working at speed if you haven't got the movements in place first, isn't it? A lot of people do bypass that, looking to chase that extra little bit of yardage. But yeah, when you've got a young child, you've got to get them to move. Well, speed will come, won't it, as they develop, as they grow, and they will work at it at some point in their development.
Yeah, definitely.
What are your so let's say, for example, you've got a lad that's a reasonable player, I don't know, 11, 12 years old, hits it nice, he's come to you as their coach now. How would you what do you kind of look for in an initial trying to get coaches kind of infused to work with juniors a little bit? What do you look for in a movement? So you talk about biases there. We all have biases, and it's hard to not fall into your bias, isn't it? It's very difficult to try and, not that I find it difficult. I know other people that I've spoken to find it difficult. How do you not kind of fall into your bias?
Yeah, so my bias is obviously to work mainly at getting the body to work functionally. But in terms of the person who comes in let's say 12 years old, let's say I say 15 handicap or whatever, it would be, first of all, is I'm massive on good setup. So first of all, it's going to be, are they stood to it appropriately to the ball flight they're trying to play? Okay, do they understand what good setup looks like? Once we've got that, I like to see the arms and the body in the back swing moving back at a really similar speed. So, and I like to see that when the body turn stops at the top, the arms finish. The position of the arms is not going to be, I want it in X a position, as in, they're going to be a little higher or a little lower relative to the shoulders. That I'm not totally on, but I'm quite big in the backswing as well of having good trail arm control, because that's going to be heavily influenced from the scapula, and because that's the last of the growth plates to set in adolescence, it doesn't actually set and stop moving until about the age of 19. Developing good awareness and good control in it early on would be something that I'd look for, because if you can get the trail arm in a good position for them, it's less likely to have that classic young kid look where the right foot's off the ground really early, pelvis is really rotated, and elbows super trapped behind the trail hip. It's kind of a classic look of a young kid. I mean, you can look at Charlie Woods, he had that 3 or 4 years ago, and it's just, they're so strong through that lower body, that's where they get power. If the arms are in a position at the top that's not necessarily going to match that power delivery on the way down, I tend to see that this can lead to some funky results.
Yeah, some wild ones off the tee, definitely.
Yeah, so definitely all over it. So yeah, in terms of they come in, so I've got my things there that I'm trying to look at the matching of movements, what ball flight they're trying to play, what are they like for club face control through impact. They'll generally come in, and a lot of people will generally have an hour minimum. I get quite a lot who come in for a 2-hour very first session. If that's the case, take them out, do some short game work, collect some data on that, see what they're like from all different types of lies and slopes and grain, and then I'll take them off 3 holes on the course as well. See what they're like on the golf course, because sometimes you can get somebody who has got a very idiosyncratic style movement, but are exceptional at playing golf. So I like to see if they're, if you get that player in, then it's for me at that moment in time, that is right. Really take your time at this point now, Dan, because you could mess this person up really quickly. They're exceptional at playing golf. Okay, they can get it round the golf course. Okay, there might be some things in their movement that I don't like, but they're great with those movements. So that person is like, okay, how do they make that movement work, rather than let's fit it into my model.
Stripping it back and understanding it.
Yes, just spending the time. Let's say, how does Scotty Scheffler's move work? If you got him in through the door, quite easy to go, well, this is how I like the swing to look, so let's get him there. You may never have heard of him if that had been the case. It's a case of, well, what is it that's going to make him what makes that swing work? How can we enhance it? How can we get it better? And then what are all the other skills that you can get that individual better at to get them performing the best in that younger categories. That would be sort of my approach, to be honest with you.
I think that's a good point you make about actually watching them play. I know a lot of them, I'm guilty sometimes. You get someone, I'm not talking juniors necessarily, but you get them in for a period of time, they're straight on the range, you watch them hit a few balls, and you're making a decision on them in a controlled environment, aren't you? You're not looking at actually them playing playing off awkward lies, actually playing different shots. It's them whacking a 7-iron for 10 balls and then making your observation off of that. So I think for any coaches listening, that's a great thing. If you've got the time, watch them under the gun a little bit, definitely.
Yeah, I like to, for me as well, for doing it in the short game rather than that first bit of tip the balls out. For me, it would be throw balls around the greens and see what their problem solving skills are like. What are they like a really base standard shot? Have they got that? What are they like on an awkward line? What are they like downhill, uphill, bunker? And then I kind of create a good overview then. And then in my mind, I can then, once we finish that session, obviously add value to the first time in. Then after that, I can create a plan for them and say, right, here's where you're at. Here's what we need to work at. And here's why. Okay, then go forward. And then I'm really big on stats. And if it's say at 12 years old, they're actually playing proper comps, I'd like them to start collecting some form of stats, even as simple as it needs to be for the person who's in front of me. But therefore, we can start to create a bit of a catalogue of what they look like as a person, the player, and therefore it becomes really easy then to sort of continue to develop them on their terms rather than on mine.
Going into stats then, that's a good point. What would you say then? So you've got a 12-year-old, it's hard to get, some kids will really buy into that, won't they? I mean, some kids, particularly in our area, absolutely detest writing anything down after a round. What couple of keys would you like to see them, stats would you like to see them write down and they can kind of measure?
So let's say you've got one who's really against doing any stats whatsoever. I'll get the parents to buy in a little bit if I can, okay? And then what I'll just simply, even to start off with, I'd just like to have an idea of how many up and downs they get. Okay, I'm not bothered about how far they're hitting off the tee. I literally couldn't care at that age. Okay, because anytime they did actual proper stats at that age, and because there's not any other juniors within the stats programs to benchmark them against, their strokes gained looks terrible, right? Because they're hit it far enough. But I'm looking more at, okay, what are they like from an accuracy perspective with their irons? What are they like at the distance control with their irons? What are they like with the short wedges? What are they like around the greens? How many times they're getting up and down? What are they like from the putting perspective? Do they avoid many 3-putts? If you do really simple bits for them, so if I got a junior in it to start off with, I'd almost say, right, not quite the pure Tiger 5, but I'd almost go, look, how many times did you mess up the short iron in your hand? Just almost looking at that. Okay, how many up and downs would you have got? Did you avoid any 3-putts? That sort of thing is where I'd go with them to start with. Even if they didn't do that totally in a stats program, but they could quite easily remember if they had many 3-putts or not, particularly if they're into their game. Because as you know, golfers by their nature, we generally remember every single shot we hit as we can recite it. 2 weeks later, sat in the pub boring people to death. So, I think that because we're so bought into our game, we kind of have a pretty good understanding of it generally.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just, I mean, when you work with kids, particularly, if you ask them, I mean, I'm guilty of it sometimes, asking them what's going wrong and stuff. They actually don't understand where they're losing shots, do they? A lot of the time, so they might say, "Oh, I'm putting really badly," and then you get them out to the short game area, they're hitting a bog standard grade 1 chip to 8 feet, and you go, "Well, you're not putting that badly. You're holding 4 out of 10 of them. You're not chipping it close enough." So it's getting them to understand it, especially at an early age. Once you've got them at that younger age, they'll keep doing that throughout their journey, won't they?
I think a big bit, as you just alluded to there, they're knocking it to 8 feet. I think the big bit then is, what does good look like? Do you understand what good actually is? And if they understand what good looks like, then they can start to have a barometer that they can gauge themselves against. Whereas if they say a chip shot and it's gone to 8 feet, and they don't know that 3 foot is where you want to be, let's say, then they're all of a sudden they're going to think, well, that's okay. But yeah, I should hold every 8 foot, because all I do is when I watch the golf on the telly, I watch the best players with their best stuff on their best week, and they don't miss anything because the golfer on the telly, they don't show the guy who just missed the cut, who maybe won 2 weeks earlier. That's just not part of the world that we see. So their expectations skewed by what they see. So therefore, they think that that's what they should do. So part of my job, or our job, I believe, is actually educating them to what actually good looks like.
Mm, mm. Yeah, you see it, don't you? You watch the Masters and they pan to a guy that's 10 back, rolling a 50-footer in on the on one of the back on the holes, because it's good to watch, isn't it? It makes good TV.
Yeah, it's exactly that. That's the one shot you've seen of him all day. And if he was holding all of them, he'd be winning, wouldn't it? Right?
Yeah,
he's also
absolutely.
but it's the only 50 footers maybe all that season, but he just looks good. So yeah, I think that's a large part of it for us in particular with the juniors. It's just make them understand what good looks like, and then a lot of expectation management.
Do you have to have a lot of expectation management with parents as well? Do you alluded to earlier about sort of getting a buy-in from the parents? Do you get parents quite actively kind of not involved with a session, so to speak, but you might get them to go away and look, X has got to work on this, is what I want you to do. So you're almost nurturing what they do with their children outside of your lesson time.
Yeah, I think it's managing the relationship between yourself, player, and the parent. I think it's the hardest bit. Golf lesson to go in the way that they want it to go for their child, because they think that this is what they believe to be correct. That one's a difficult one. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum where they just drop off and go, and they think they're doing it because they want this out of the way. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got both, and then you've got everything in between. So I think it's a lot of what we've got to do is sort of understand the child in front of us. Okay. Yeah. How much are they relying on that, that parental system? Does that parental system have a lot of sort of control over them, or do they have a lot of buy-in from that parental system, or are they trying their best to sort of live up to what that parental system thinks they should be? There's lots of different moving parts there already, and then from there that then comes down to how I'll then converse with each different types of parents. So, some of them you've got to almost be like, look, you want to get better, you're paying me to get better. This is my job, right? And then trust me on it. And but here's what I want you to do away from it. I want you as part of it, but here's the role I want you to play. You're the support system and the bus driver. You're not the coach, right? It sounds a little bit harsh, but it's true, right? Because they're probably really successful in what else they do in life. It doesn't mean that they're going to be able to be great when it comes to coaching their child. And then some of the others who want to stay out of the way a little bit, it's just almost creating a bit of a safety net. I think they want to be part of it, but they sort of don't want to be in the way. So that's a different dynamic again that you have to create. And it's just managing it all. I think that's probably one of the harder parts of what we do.
Mm. It's case by case, isn't it? As you've just said there, you can't have one approach to it. Speaking to a coach the other day, he said I've tried not having them involved to get them involved massively, and everything in between. I think you learn to deal with it on a case by case basis. Absolutely.
Yeah. I've got ones who have been like, they've been very successful. Mum and dad are at every event with them, but they're almost like they're there. There's a support system. And they're like, they don't say anything. Whereas I've got others who it's like, might be every event, but on the way home in the car, it's like, what went wrong there? It's like that sort of, rather than it just being like, did all right today? Yes, no, enjoy it. Yeah, great. Right, let's go again. There's like, they're almost hammering them for it. Some of the ones on the way back, and some of them just let them enjoy it. Some are heavily involved with it all. I think there's just a lot of moving parts in it for us.
Absolutely. Moving into a little bit of, I'm not conscious of time, I don't take so much of your time. Looking at, building a little bit of resilience with junior golfers, especially at that better level. They might be competing in, your Carrises, etc. how do you, as a coach, I could stand and talk to you for hours about what you would do in a golf swing, but maybe it's a slightly different question. How do you build a bit of resilience with a junior golfer?
I start to encourage them to play a lot of things like worst ball.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to get that when we start to say, you get into the level of carriage, you want to go and win the carriage, so have a chance to win it. So I'll do a lot of things like play worst ball, because that's straight away expectation management stuff. You're going to hit some clunky shots in some difficult spots. I'll build a lot of that in. I'll also, I always feel when I'm in a lesson, like on the golf course, when they hit a shot that's less than ideal, and they have whatever reaction they're going to have, I kind of look at that as like my opportunity. My opportunity to now coach. Right, let's give them some coping mechanisms. Let's say, back to the expectation management stuff, maybe that hasn't gone OB, it's just there, right? And then you can use a recent event where a tall player has knocked it sideways, but because they're so good with the wedge, they could knock it up to 80 yards and still get it up and down. Well, whereas this kid's expecting to knock it stone dead every time from everywhere and flush it down the middle, etc., etc. I was saying, well, hang on a minute, you're not going to do that. You're going to hit some shots like this, okay? And then make them understand what good looks like. And then from that sort of resilience perspective, I do it a lot quite early on in their training. I always give them a challenge that they just can't quite complete. Mm-hmm. So I think that has a really good knock-on effect then to the golf course. But I like to set it so that it's just beyond where they're currently at. And then when they get there, they're like absolutely made up, and then I'll shift it again.
Yeah.
So you're constantly just moving what their version of good in whatever challenges we're doing. I keep moving that down the road. So then they're having to keep pushing to get better. They get frustrated. And I'm like, but look how long it takes you to get there. And now I'll compare it to people who are older who've done some of these challenges and who they might think is a good player and say, well, this person took X time and you're there, you're actually doing really well. Let's keep going. Boom. And then when they get there, then you do that 2 or 3 times, and all of a sudden you start to build in a pattern. And they start to buy into the fact that it's a bit of a process. And then you can start to take it out onto the golf course. You can start to look at the pre-shot routine a little bit more. You can start to build into, them being able to visually remember what a good shot looks like. So that becomes something that goes into their pre-shot. So all of that sort of stuff, and that sort of really higher level junior for me would be really starting to build out the resilience. So, and then I'll often, it'll be right. We'll have games where it might be, say, we're playing 5 holes and you've got to hit the fairway. And if you got 2 balls, you can hit fairway finder and a bomb. If you absolutely send the bomb down the middle, but you miss the fairway finder, go 20 yards back in the rough. Yeah. Straight away, that's like, should I hit one that bad? Yeah, but you failed. So unlucky. You put it there. Let's go back here. Let's go on. And then it's like, right, but you do that, you suddenly start to build up a lot for me over. And I don't think that there's a short answer to doing that. I think that's a built up over stages. Yeah. I think so.
I did a silly thing the other day. I took a group of I did like under 12s county stuff. And I took them out there and I said, you see a lot of these jokey Instagram golf pages. They have like our breakfast balls and whatever. I said, I'll give you 1 breakfast ball today, but I'm also going to give you a devil ball. I said, at any point in time, you'll hit a shot that you might be really happy with, and I'll make you do it again, just to see how you react. So, like, for example, one lad had a nightmare of a hole, was chipping on for like double, and he'd stiffed his chip stone dead. I said, I'll do that again. And he looked at me like, oh my God, I'm already here for 6. You're making me chip again. And he chipped it, he got up and down. I said, well done. Like, that threw you a little bit and you managed to still complete that task. It's actually quite good to see how they react. You get some that react well, don't you? Get some that want to throw you in the rough and get rid of you for the rest of the day. But it's good. I think it is good to do with kids.
I think so. And then the one that's reacting like that, then it's just a case of first, why they're reacting like that. Okay, well, how can we teach them not to react like that? And then that's us then working, coaching with the individual on their level, isn't it? For what we want. But I think it's having something like you've said there with that game, your worst ball, etc., and all that sort of stuff, is you start to put something in that gives you the opportunity to say, right, this is what we need to do next now.
Definitely.
Because it gives us the opportunity for them to, maybe get frustrated, get annoyed, out it, and then we can start to build it in. Well, actually, what does good look like, etc., etc. I do genuinely think, though, it's a process.
Yeah, there's no time limit on it, is there? People will develop at their own rate. It's like anything, don't they? Technically, emotionally, physically, it's all as long as you've got the systems in place.
So individualised, you're going to get some who are like, really want after it, and they're an amazing competitor, and then you've got some who are like super chill and low key. You think, well, that'll never get to them, but maybe they internalize it in a way, right? When they get frustrated, and the other person makes it look external. So the one who looks external, you might go, oh, they lost it there, and that's caused a bad round. But maybe they can just go and then let it go and carry on. The person who's internalizing it, like, takes it forward with them for 5 holes. So kind of very personality driven. And then I also think, a lot of it starts to come through that sort of maturational phase in terms of like testosterone and all that sort of stuff starts to go through us as when we start to go through that sort of maturational phase in our lives. That has such a huge influence on the way that they all start to respond, all the kids. And I think that then becomes another challenge in itself. So it's just so many layers to it all, in terms of developing them out. And, you go from the emotional side of it, which is going to be linked to that maturation phase, which is also linked to the physicality side of it. So you might have someone who's a little bit smaller at 15, they haven't started the maturational cycle or the premenstrual cycle, or period cycle, all those sort of things haven't started yet. But they're not that big. So they're the shortest, and what have you. Then all of a sudden they might go through a massive growth spurt. They go through getting a load of testosterone, etc. Suddenly, this person who's dead meek and mild might be a little bit angry for a little bit because they've got this stuff they don't really know what to do with. All of a sudden, they might be sending it. So their golf game can completely change over the course of 6 months. So they might have a DNA of a player who we traditionally would have thought was a bit of a plotter, might actually become a bit of a bomber. But how would you predict that? So it's sort of like, you can't, so I think I find the junior coaching side of it really exciting and cool, just because there's so many things that go into it all.
Yeah, you're not just a swing coach, are you? You are so many different things to a variety of different people, aren't you? As you've quite rightly said there, you're a statistician, you're a psychologist at times, you're a sounding board sometimes. I find a lot of juniors sometimes they trust you so much, they confide in you with things, don't they? That
100%.
Yeah, it's a nice. You do create some great relationships with people, definitely.
Yeah, you might have it where go from the first girlfriend to the first breakup to all that sort of stuff as part of the coaching world that you go through. I look back, I just thought then, just for a second, as you're talking, that about a couple of months ago, bumped into a lad who I used to coach as a junior, and he's like 23 now, and he was like, he came up with like, oh my God, I used to love having the sessions with you. I used to love it. He's not been playing, he's just gone back to playing golf again, and uni and stuff like that had got in the way of it. And he was like, let me buy you a beer. I used to love it. This time, you think, yeah, this is pretty cool, because you've actually influenced somebody's life in a way as well. So it's like, when you actually take that on board and look at it, we have to almost go, wow, we've got like a pretty important role there. So we really do need to do a good job with it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, shows how long I've been doing it now. I had a little lad, not a little lad anymore, a lad come down. He's only 24, 25 now. But he brought his son. His son was like 1 on the range. And he's like, oh, I'm bringing him up, getting ready for you. I was like, wow, that's like, I didn't really think of it at the time. I started running in between lessons, and I thought, I got home, I was like, Christ, like, that's quite a cool thing to actually. I feel a bit old, but it's quite a cool thing to see, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those sort of things are really nice reminders for us that, yeah, okay, you've got it at the very top level. You know, the ultimate journey for me as a coach would be you get someone from say 8 or 9 and take them all the way through the levels. You take them to the tour and they win on tour. That would be like the ultimate player coach journey, right? But on the other side of it, what about if you've just had people you've just influenced in their life and they just remember all the fun that they had and you gave them some good life lessons and stuff like that. That's probably equally, if not more important than creating the winner. Do you know what I mean? I think that there's so many things for us that we almost have to have multiple hats on all the time in what we're doing.
Definitely. Right, just one last question because I'm just conscious of the time. Not junior golf related, more aimed at professionals now. You know, I see it a lot in our area when we're trying to get, you know, trying to recruit kind of kids to the county program. A lot of professionals are still very resistant at, you know, sending their players over to people, and they get very, I don't know, protective of their own players that they coach. How do you find the dynamic working with other people? I know you're predominantly someone's coach, but how do you find the dynamic of working with bringing other people into a team maybe?
Yeah, I think that the guys who generally are quite insular in the way that they're going through it, they don't want necessarily a player to go into a team, or they're concerned going into that team or going into that environment, they're going to be exposed to something that is therefore maybe going to take that player away from them, and they might not continue working with them, so therefore they lose that player. I think that person doing that is really, first of all, if I'm going to be totally honest, I think that person probably needs to look at themselves first and think, why am I looking like this? Because is it because I'm not doing as good a job as I maybe should be doing, right? But then if I look at the other side of that question, which is much more like, you know, how would I deal with it in that scenario? For me, it is a case of be totally transparent. You know, my job in a squad perspective, in a squad environment, is not to work at, you know, Ben's golf swing and change his fundamentals. You always coach, but what I'm going to look to do is do all the squad based stuff. I'm going to teach him how to map a golf course out. I'm going to teach him about weather and environment. I'm going to be setting challenges for him within a group setting. I'm going to do different types of tests. If I do anything technical at any point, anything comes up as a technical opportunity at any point, I will then say to the coach, we did this, but here's the data and here's what I spotted, and leave it with them. I wouldn't be the guy who goes, right, you're doing this wrong, so here's this, because I think that can do one or two things. It can either make it look like you're trying to steal the players, which other people don't like. It can lead to the other coach being totally peeved off with you because they think you're trying to steal their player. But the most important one out of all, I think that the kid gets confused.
Yeah. Who am I listening to? Who am I? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. Where it was like, and that's genuinely what I do. You know, if I see something, it would be right. I'll get in touch with the coach and say, this is what I've seen. Here's why. But I think the job within a squad environment is just everything to take advantage. You've got a really good group of like-minded kids and players and even adults all together. Okay, how can I use this environment to push everybody to get better? And how can we do this squad stuff to teach them stuff that would be hard to do in a one-on-one lesson?
Yeah, focus on stuff they can't do. That's a great shout.
You know, if somebody's coming in for a 1 hour session with you, if you spend 40 minutes talking about course mapping and wind directions and how to do it all, they might not see any value in that. Okay, whereas in squad position, they might think it's the greatest thing they've ever done. Because I'm quite happy to sit down and go through something in a course book and do it that way. Because in that scenario, they think it's brilliant. Whereas in the one-on-one lesson, their expectation level might be that they want to do the short game, and you're thinking you go off on a tangent doing something else. So I think that you look at the areas that you wouldn't do in your normal golf lesson is how I would run all my squads.
That's a great shout, and I'll certainly take that on board. Right, I'm just conscious of the time. It says less than a minute, so thank you very much for your time, Dan. Really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much, and I'll